Hello and welcome. This is Lita Downs from the Center for Faculty Excellence, and I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, From Uh-Oh to Om, Making Mindfulness and Self-Care a Priority to Support Your Everyday Work at Walden and Beyond. This session was originally presented at the Winter 2019 National Faculty Meeting in Tampa, Florida. And we have Dr. Tiffany Hamilton, our original presenter, who will be presenting with us today. I'd like to introduce Dr. Hamilton, and I'd also like to point out that there are also some additional files linked to today's session. They're in the lower left-hand corner. I know Dr. Hamilton will review those later on, but if you want to click on them right now so you have them ready, that would be great. Dr. Hamilton, welcome.
Thank you so very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany Hamilton. I'm a program director here at Walden University in the Riley College of Education and Leadership. I've been at Walden for 13 and a half years in various different roles, and I'm really excited about this specific topic today: how we make mindfulness and self-care more of a priority to really support our everyday work here at Walden and beyond. So for today, we're going to have a little bit of an introduction. I will then define mindfulness and self-care, and then we'll talk about why does this really matter? How would you use this at your work at Walden and in your personal life? I will briefly discuss my journey to mindfulness, and then we're going to share some tips, tools, and takeaways for how you can implement this information after the webinar today. So when you first look at this slide, can you relate to this at all? If you're anything like most of the people I know, whether they work inside of Walden or outside of Walden, we are all constantly juggling the demands of everyday life. Our plates are always feeling full, almost overloaded. There's always a to-do list that's a mile long, and we never seem to be able to get it done. Really, our society teaches us that we need to be accessible and available at all times. We've got instant message, text message, direct message, emails, phone calls. We can really just run ourselves ragged trying to do everything and be everything to everyone. But we really forget about the most important thing in the entire equation. Could you guess what that is? Well, it's you. So today, we really want to focus on how we can be more mindful and present moment by moment to be better equipped to handle the stressors of everyday life, and to be more present so we can enjoy our lives more. When you look at this picture, how many of you guys can relate? It's really that idea of your mind full, and is your mind really full, or are you being mindful in that extent? How many times do you just feel every day that there's so many things going on? You've got so many things running in your mind. I'll give you an example from my own work at Walden at times. All right, I'm logged into my conference call. I've got 5 meetings today. I've got a gazillion emails to still respond to. I have 2 student calls after my 5 meetings, and I'm in this meeting and I'm attending. But the question is, am I really present? Or am I just thinking about all the things that I have to do, that student I have to call, the other meetings that I have to still finish preparing my agenda, and really my mind is just full and overwhelmed in that extent. Versus being mindful, truly being open and present in the moment. So I think it's really helpful, because there's a lot of different definitions of mindful, to go ahead and talk about and review some specific definitions that I feel like are really applicable to this specific presentation. Lita, could you hit the mindfulness defined handout, please? So mindfulness isn't just about knowing that you're hearing something, seeing something, or even observing that you're having a particular feeling. It's about doing so in a certain way, with balance and equanimity, and without judgment. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention in a way that creates space for insight. Another definition: mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non judgmentally. So, with both of these two top definitions, there's a few things I want to point out. The first one is they both hit on that word judgment and that idea of not having judgment. A lot of times we are the hardest on ourselves, more so than anyone else. And we could judge our thoughts, our feelings. Why aren't we producing more? We forgot this. Oh no. But really, mindfulness is truly about being non judgmental, detaching your judgment from a particular act and or situation. The bottom definition: mindfulness is the art of paying attention to present moment experiences with openness and curiosity. Mindfulness can be developed through meditation practice, and it is also a quality of attention that can be brought to any moment in life. It can be employed throughout the day to deal with stressful situations and to reduce emotional reactivity. Mindfulness tools and practices can help us with work, family, relationships, health, and in any area of stress and difficulty. Anyone of any background can be taught mindfulness to find more ease and well being no matter what life circumstances. So I really like this definition, not because I'm a little biased, because UCLA is my alma mater, but I think the UCLA Mindfulness and Awareness Research Center has a great definition. I want to point out a few things that I think are really important here. The first one is anyone of any background can be taught mindfulness. So a lot of times, sometimes people kind of equate mindfulness with spirituality or religion, but it truly is not. And I think it's important for anyone to understand that mindfulness can be taught and embraced by anyone. So you don't have to be a religious or spiritual in that extent to really start learning about and practicing mindfulness. The other thing I want to talk about is they gave an example of mindfulness through, for an example, a meditation practice. But meditation and really sitting down and going, that's not really the only way that you can be mindful. There's lots of ways that you can stop and be mindful and present in that moment. I know you've heard the saying, stop and smell the roses, but really, it's truly true, and that is part of mindfulness. Instead of just walking through your everyday life and kind of being on that hamster wheel, mindfulness truly allows you to stop and smell the roses, to look around at all the vivid colors and everything that's happening around you, and to stop and appreciate it and to be present to everything in that extent. The other thing that I really like about this definition is that it reminds you that mindfulness can be practiced in any area of your life. This could happen at your work, this could happen with your family, your friends, and also, as importantly, with your health as well. So there's lots of ways to incorporate this. If we could go back to the PowerPoint. So I not only believe that it's important to talk about it, but I think it's also important to experience it. So I'm going to take us through a brief meditation. So if you're currently sitting at your desk, I ask you to go ahead and back up your chair a little bit from your desk. Get a little bit comfortable as we're going to go through a brief meditation. Today, we're going to do a mindfulness technology exercise. So with so much technology around us, it's really easy to forget that ultimately we get to define the relationship we have with our technology. For most of us, we have developed some quite bad habits. And one of those habits is to react to every single little thing, every sound, every ding, every vibration that comes from our phone or from our computer. So, this exercise is about learning how to be more responsive and a little less reactive. So, we are going to use an exercise called noting, where it allows you to see when the mind is sorting and darting off. Rather than simply following it and going with it, we take a moment to realize, oh, yeah, actually, there is a choice in this moment. We can either let it go or choose to engage with it. And by practicing this on a regular basis, it will it will help you to have a slightly better, healthier relationship with the technology around you. So just take a moment to get comfortable. Make sure you are not going to be disturbed. And just begin with one big, deep breath. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you breathe in and out, if you haven't done it already, you can just gently close the eyes. And just feeling that contact, being reassured by the weight of the body pressing down. Feeling the feet on the floor and the hands and the arms and the legs. Just taking a moment to notice how you feel. Enjoying that feeling of being free from technology, unplugging yourself. And as you sit there, just starting to notice the movement of the breath and the body. Just that gentle rising and falling sensation. You don't have to breathe in any special way, just following the natural rhythm of the breath. And just staying with that. Every now and again, a thought will arise. The moment you realize that the mind is wandering off with the thought, simply pausing and your mind just silently noting it. Oh, yeah, it's thinking. Letting it go and coming back to the breath again. Just staying with the breath and just practicing this idea of acknowledging something, but not necessarily engaging with it. Just letting it go and coming back to whatever you are doing in that moment. Right now, the breath, not only the breath, just starting to become more aware of the body. Once again, that feeling of contact, the body pressing down, feet on the floor, the hands, the arms, and the legs. And then, when you're ready, in your own time, just gently opening the eyes again. And coming back into the space. Well, hopefully, I still have you with me and I haven't lulled you to sleep with this meditation, but also, hopefully, it's an opportunity for you to take a moment to reflect. How were you feeling before the meditation? Are you feeling differently now that you've taken a few minutes to unplug from the outside world, but to plug back into yourself? What was that experience like for you? Was it easy? Was it difficult? I know from my own experiences, when I first started meditating, it was a bit difficult for me. I'd find myself getting a little bit antsy, my mind wandering off, but I was also told that that's part of the process. And the idea is to stay in the seat. Stay in the seat for 10 seconds, another 10 seconds, another 10 seconds. And you know what? You'll be there for a minute, two. So just reflecting. If it was difficult for you, that's okay. This is an opportunity for you to try it out, to find a place and a space where you feel most comfortable with connecting. And again, I want to kind of have you guys think about that meditation is not the only way to be mindful. You might want to practice being outside in nature, taking your shoes off and touching your feet to the grass and the ground, taking your dog for a walk, making yourself a nice cup of tea, and taking a moment to just silently drink the tea. There's lots of ways for you to be mindful and to bring yourself back into the present moment. Meditation is just one example of this. I do believe it is a great example and can really be helpful. But I also want to highlight that it's important for you to try different things out and to see what you personally align with. Something else to think about from this specific exercise is, what is your reflection on your current relationship with the technology? Is there anything you would consider changing about it? I know something that I used to do and still do at times because I think I've gotten a little bit better with technology. But I used to have off the grid days. They would literally be days, mainly, of course, on the weekend, where I would disengage or unplug from all technology. I wouldn't be on my computer, my TV, my iPad. I wouldn't utilize my phone to surf Facebook, Instagram, check emails, nothing. And I would really utilize that time to connect with myself. I might decide to go do a hobby, something that I enjoy, going out into nature, going to the beach. I could also do something else fun to connect with my inner child, such as playing with Legos or doing a puzzle. So there's lots of ways to think about how you can really consider bringing mindfulness into your everyday life and what that might look like for you. Now, thinking about self-care, there's a few definitions of self-care. The World Health Organization defines self-care simply as the activities individuals, families, and communities undertake with the intention of enhancing health, preventing disease, limiting illness, and restoring health. I also really like this definition. Self-care is an activity that we do deliberately in order to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health. So, really, to me, self care is about taking care of oneself. It's truly about making yourself a priority in your life. And I know it's sometimes easy for us to kind of forget that. We have so many other people that we're trying to take care of that oftentimes we forget to take care of ourselves. And I always like to think about it kind of like that analogy or what they say when we're about to take off on a flight. First, you put the oxygen mask on yourself, and then you put the oxygen mask or help your children or others in that extent. Because if you don't have oxygen, you can't help anyone. So I think it's always important to remember self-care is about you. Self-care is not about adding to your to-do list. However, it really is identifying your essential needs and prioritizing. Self care is also not about creating a response plan when stress is becoming overwhelming and you're feeling like you're close to burnout. Instead, self care is really more about noticing what some of the signals and triggers are so you can identify when you may be close to reaching burnout. And instead of hitting that brick wall, taking steps to de escalate your stress and to bring yourself out of that space. Finally, self care is not about being selfish, it is about looking after yourself so you can give the best to the world. So, this is just a slide that I kind of like to show because sometimes we think about self care just in that sense of going to the spa and having a massage. And I am going to go back one slide real quick because, yes, that is me there in the picture. I did get a facial, and that was one day when, I said, hey, I'm going to take care of myself. And that was one way to do it. But I do want you to kind of realize that there's more ways than just going to the spa, getting a massage, that really defines itself as self care. There's physical self care that involves movement of the body, health, nutrition, sleep, rest. Examples of this could be going for a walk on the beach, taking an Epsom salt bath. There's psychological self care. This involves learning new things, engaging in intrinsic motivation, practicing mindfulness and creativity. Examples of this: journaling, reading a book, doing a digital detox, essentially looking at the way that you're interacting with technology and detoxing it or finding a different way to engage or not engage that's healthier for you. There's also emotional self-care. This involves navigating your emotions, increasing empathy, managing stress effectively, and developing compassion for self and others. And I think it's important to note that oftentimes we can really have empathy or compassion for others, but sometimes we lack or forget about giving it to ourselves. Examples of emotional self care could be writing in a gratitude jar, saying no. So, learning to say no to others so you can say yes to yourself. There's also social self care. This involves having a supportive group and a network of relationships around with whom you trust and can turn to when required and when you need help. So, just thinking about this, even at your work at Walden, when you're having a bad day, when you realize you're feeling upset from an email that was sent to you or from a phone call that you might have had with a colleague or a faculty member, who are the people within your work at Walden? Who are your colleagues that you can reach out to and that you have a support system where you can say, hey, I'm feeling a little agitated. I know I shouldn't send this email. Can I talk it out with you? And I also think it's important to have this social circle as well within your own personal life. Oftentimes, we may need the reflection or second opinion of someone, and it's always great to get a new perspective as well. We can also think about professional self care. This involves sharing your strengths and gifts, having clear professional boundaries, and living your purpose. I think one of the important ones to kind of point out is having clear and professional boundaries. So at Walden, I currently work from home. And I know some of my friends that work jobs that they have to go into the office, they always think and say, oh, it must be so lucky or so lucky to work from home. But sometimes I have to admit that working from home can sometimes create unhealthy boundaries for myself. Example is I'll get up in the morning at 6 o'clock, and first thing I'll do is I'll grab my work phone and I'll start checking emails before I've done anything else. Then I'll get up, have a cup of coffee, shower, and get right back to checking emails in that. And all of a sudden, I blink and it's 2:30. I haven't eaten lunch. I haven't taken a drink of water. I haven't even stepped outside. And when I see myself in sort of that pattern, I know that I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not having healthy boundaries, and I need to do something and change something in that extent. And sometimes when I notice that I'm not doing something, I will want to help retrain myself and remind myself that there are different options and I have different choices. One of the techniques that I sometimes employ through neurolinguistic programming or NLP is literally when I want to make a change, I will kind of let myself know that I do want to make a change and show that I'm making a change in simple ways. This could even be by brushing my teeth with my non-dominant hand. I always have the same route that I take to go to the grocery store, picking a different route. I go on walks, and normally I have the same walking path, but instead going through a totally different neighborhood while I'm walking. Again, just acknowledging and signaling that I'm ready and doing things differently now. Another example is environmental self-care. This involves having an organized, well-maintained, and clutter-free work, business, or home environment. So this is an example is taking a look at your desk and taking a few minutes to clean it up, get it organized, have it be a reflection of how you want to present yourself to the world and how you want to interact with people outside as well. Another area is spiritual self-care. This involves the beliefs and values that are important to you and that guide your life. So this could be, for example, meditating, walking in nature, just taking some time to reflect on your own. Finally, there's financial self-care. This involves being responsible with your finances, and I think most importantly, having a conscious relationship with money. And I kind of also see this sometimes as your relationship with food. Sometimes you're having that bad day, and you know what? You say, I don't care. I'm going to have that ice cream cone. Or I don't care. I'm about to go do some retail therapy. But really, instead, being mindful, being present, and being conscious with your relationship to potentially money or food and what it may be masking or what that trigger may be to just unconsciously fall into. So one of the things I'd like you to consider when you're kind of thinking about how mindfulness and self-care really relate to your work at Walden is, what do you think are the benefits of mindfulness for students and educators? What are the benefits of self-care for you at work and in your personal life? And what are some self-care ideas or mindfulness techniques you would like to incorporate in your life? So just thinking about, these are some examples of the benefits that mindfulness can have for educators. It's a way that it can improve focus and awareness. It can increase your responsiveness to students' needs. It can support healthy relationships at home and work. It can enhance the classroom climate. I think this is a great one. Thinking about the environment that you're creating, whether it's in your online classroom and how you're really engaging, inviting, and welcoming students to engage back with you. Your responses to questions, even if it's the fifth student that's asked you the same question, knowing and understanding that they need the help and taking that extra moment to say, hey, I might have written this 5 times now, I feel like, but just as I did with the first student, I need to give that same attention and care to this 5th student now. These are also some examples of benefits that mindfulness can have for students. I really like this first one, supporting readiness to learn. I work in the doctoral programs in Riley College, and I think mindfulness could so help doctoral students. These doctoral students are working full time. They're also trying to finish their degree, while many times the people that are around them, their family and their friends, really don't understand what it's like to be a doctoral student juggling all these things. They want to be there to support, but oftentimes doctoral students can feel alone and isolated. So utilizing mindfulness to really set that stage for readiness to learn. You can even encourage your students to potentially take a minute to meditate, take a minute to clear their mind, take a minute to let go of the work stress, to let go of the children, the spouse, the partner that might be in the background and say, hey, I'm going to be working for the next hour of my schoolwork. And take those first 5 minutes to be mindful, to do some breathing, to meditate, to really set yourself up for success and bring yourself into focus attention. So again, I'm not going to read through all of these, but I think there's some great examples of the benefits that mindfulness can have on our students. And you as a faculty member, somebody that might have direct reports and other employees, reporting into you, thinking about ways that you might engage in conversations, talk to them about the benefits of mindfulness, or potentially practicing mindfulness with your larger team as well. And thinking about the benefits of self-care for you at work and your personal life. I really know that when I'm not taking care of myself, eventually it's going to show up in my work. It's going to show up accidentally in a tone of my email when I'm so rushed that all of a sudden I'm being a little bit snippety and short. when maybe that wasn't my intention, but I haven't taken a break or allowed myself some space and time. So I really think when you're more aware and taking care of yourself, you can be more productive. You will see benefits for your health and potentially have to take less sick days. The more you give to yourself truly equates to the more that you have to give to others as well. And finally, just thinking for a second, what are some self-care ideas or mindfulness techniques you would incorporate in your life? So just a few examples when I'm thinking of this is, even though it kind of might sound silly, scheduling lunch within my Outlook calendar. Because I know that I get so busy, sometimes I have to just schedule it because I haven't learned how to make it a habit yet. So scheduling lunch within your Outlook calendar. Making sure before I sit down at my computer or start my workday that I have walked outside of my house, outside of the door, and whether I take a walk for 15 minutes or just take 3 deep breaths of fresh air from outside, taking that moment to really connect with myself before I start my work. Also for me, another example that I utilize is a lot of times I'm somebody that I do too much. I overschedule myself often. So I'm busy at work, and then after work, I have lots of activities. I volunteer, I like to go to exercise classes, etc. But sometimes I look at my schedule, it's like, geez Louise, there is not a free moment in there. And I know if I don't have some time to just relax, I'm going to get burnt out, even if these are so-called fun activities or things that I'd like to be doing. So I sometimes have to consciously schedule an evening with no schedule. I know that kind of sounds counterintuitive, but essentially I like to make sure that Thursday nights, I'm not allowed to make any plans. And that will allow me to do whatever I want. That could be watching some silly mindless TV that'll just make me laugh. That could be reading a book, lots of different things. But I am aware that one of the things that happens to me is my overscheduling. So instead of just allowing that to happen, I do put in specific techniques to help create more balance and more mindfulness in my life. So one of the things that we've talked about at Walden University and Laureate overall is this idea about positive leadership. And you can see here are the 4 pillars of positive leadership. Relationships, how we are with others at work and how we relate to others within our life. Purpose and meaning. Why do we work at Walden? Why have we chosen to be educators or work within higher education? What is really our purpose and meaning behind the work that we do at Walden? Communication. How do we interact with others? Through our body language, through our email, through our tone, both with our voices and the tone of the emails that we send. Finally, there's climate. What sort of environment are we creating? What sort of environment are we creating for the students within our classrooms, for the other colleagues that we interact with throughout the different departments at Walden University, and being really conscious of that. So I truly believe that mindfulness and self-care are connected to all of these. I think to be a positive leader, you need to both be mindful and know how to implement self-care in your life. Part of that reason is to be a positive leader, I think you also need to be aware of what's happening with the team that reports into you and others within your department. So you could say, hey, it looks like you might be having a bad day. Do you want to talk about it? Or potentially be a resource or be a lifeline for somebody that might be on your team to let them know you're here to help support them. So again, I really do think that mindfulness and self-care are truly infused in positive leadership. And with any of the four pillars, you can see and understand how taking that moment to be present can really make the difference on how you are being and showing positive leadership within your everyday work here at Walden. Now, I'm going to take a moment just to talk about my journey to mindfulness and self-care. I was a doctoral student getting my EDD at UCLA, and at that time, I was also working at Walden as a product manager. That meant I had traveled back and forth from California to Baltimore. I was feeling the pressures of helping to launch our first online teacher preparation program. And I really have to be honest, I was not sure I could juggle it all. And I was actually feeling like I was failing. I was feeling like I wasn't doing my job right. I wasn't doing school right. I was just feeling so overwhelmed. And I knew if I didn't make a change, I just didn't feel like I was going to make it. And I felt like something was going to be let go. And so at that point, I ended up hiring a coach. I found someone that really taught me the foundation and fundamentals of mindfulness and self-care. I started to meditate. It wasn't easy at first, but I found a meditation practice that worked for me. I started to reprioritize things in my life. I realized, yes, I have tons of activities, but if I wanted to finish this doctorate degree, there were some things that I was going to have to let go of. And I was going to have to get over FOMO, the fear of missing out, and embrace really this new adventure that I was on, really getting my doctoral degree. I found ways to take time in nature. I started taking walks and making that part of my daily practice. The other thing that I realized that was not happening was every time I took vacation from Walden, I took it to do writing on my dissertation. Well, that's really great for me being productive. However, at some point I realized, my gosh, I haven't taken a break from myself in years at that point. And so I kind of stopped, looked at my vacation, and said, you know what? Not only should you, but you need to take a break. And so this is a picture of me in Sedona, Arizona, really connecting with nature, taking that time to really be present and realizing that I wasn't taking care of myself. I was getting so burnt out with trying to do everything that I had to stop, and I had to actually get help to help me implement some of these practices. And part of the reason why I say this is it's important to think of your students as well, who are juggling a ton of responsibilities as they're moving forward with their work, with their family, potentially taking care of parents or other loved ones as well. And so thinking about ways that you can encourage when you see a student that may be near burnout, what are some tips and resources that you might suggest to them as well? So I also want to talk about some ways that after this webinar, you can really apply what we've discussed and learned today. Lita, could you go to our mindfulness map handout, please? So you'll see that this is just something simple that I would recommend printing out if you're like me and you still have a printer, or you could also do it on your computer as well. But I think it'd be great for you to print out, maybe consider going to a coffee shop or a park and taking a few minutes to go through and answer these questions. It's just an opportunity in a way to get you in the mindset of reflecting on some of the ways in the past that maybe you were not addressing burnout or stress, and really thinking about the different resources, people that you have available, and ways that you would implement mindfulness into your life. So you can kind of take a look and see there's lots of different questions and examples for you to reflect and think about. And if you go to the next handout, Lita, the My Self-Care Plan. Now, this is also a plan where it allows you to come up with some different self-care activities and get specific also. So when it's a month from now and this webinar is maybe a little bit far from your recent memory. You might have printed out this self-care plan or put it next to your desk. And when you're having one of those hard days, you can kind of take a look and say, you know what? I can go take a bath tonight. You know what? I can go to the gym and go into the sauna or steam room and just release some of that energy. Part of the self-care plan is also to think about what might get in the way of implementing my self-care plan. So it's already an opportunity for you to reflect about what may be some of those triggers or challenges that you've encountered in the past and how you would deal with them. Because let's be honest, life happens. And so one of the other things I want to mention is no one's perfect here, and perfection is not what we're striving for. Every day is a new opportunity. So although I have been on a mindfulness and self-care path for probably the last 10 to 15 years, I realized that there are times that all of a sudden I find myself completely stressed out and completely overwhelmed. And something will remind me, oh, wait, I don't have to feel this way. And I do have the opportunity. Tomorrow is a new day. And you know what? I can start over. I'm going to choose to handle this in a different way, something that is better for my health, for my wealth, and for my well-being in that extent. If you could go back to the PowerPoint, great. So those are just a few examples of how you can apply what we learned and discussed today. In addition, you can find some of the references and resources that I utilized to put together this presentation and workshop. And I just wanted to thank you all for attending and viewing this webinar. Really appreciate, and I think just by you showing up and choosing to listen to this webinar, you are already taking the first step and acknowledging that you are ready to implement and be more mindful and find ways to take care of yourself as you're moving forward. So I congratulate you on attending, and I wish you well as you're moving forward with your mindfulness techniques and your self-care plan. Thank you so very much, and have a good rest of your day.